Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm just going to start the webinar in the Zoom, in the, good morning, good morning. This is my first ever webinar and actually I'm a bit nervous, really funny, but I've got 14 people that have registered on the webinar, so thank you so much. And I'm not sure if I can actually see you unless you put something in the chat to say that you're here. So thank you so much for joining me on my first ever webinar. And for those that are watching on Facebook, unfortunately, you won't be able to see the slides. So if you want to jump on to the post that I just did in Women of Light, and there'll be a link in there to register, so you'll be able to actually see what I'm talking about. You won't be just watching me. So good morning to everyone. This is the first ever webinar, a weekly webinar series that I'm going to be putting on to support and give you more value on this page and to serve you in a better way. I can see that someone's watching and I don't know who you are on Facebook, so I'd love for you to put in the chat and say hi. And so once a week on a Monday at 8:30 at the moment, and to see how this goes. Maybe it's going to be an unusual time for people, so we'll see. Maybe I'll change it, I'm not sure. I'm going to be putting some information on here just to create more interest and to give you something to support you through this time in your spiritual journey, in your search for more of who you are, more of connecting with your higher self and your intuition. So it's only going to be half an hour, so let's jump straight into it. So today, for the very first webinar, I thought I would do my famous, infamous 3 powers. So some people know about this and some don't. So this is the foundation of my work. Basically, I was in a position where I was working as a remedial massage therapist. I've been a remedial massage therapist for 20 years and discovered that I could read energy. Energy was the vibration that I communicated with the most. I was someone that didn't really find spirituality, it found me. And I thought that there was something like wrong with me because I went to a psychic. And by the way, I'm Elizabeth Eleanor, for those that don't know. I went to a psychic and in the process of going to this woman, discovered that there was more to connecting than what I thought. It just sort of happened to me. And so through the process, hey Brenda, I'm just going to put this up here so I can see. This is my first ever webinar, so thank you so much for coming on.
Congratulations, good girl.
So I'm just talking about on the process of how I became a spiritual warrior. Basically, I went through the connection of finding myself through a psychic who said, you know, you can actually do what I do, you just don't know it. And so through that process, she didn't let me go back. When I had weird energies coming around me and connecting with me, she was actually not like, I rang her up to say, can I come back? And she said no, which now I see as a blessing, because now I understand that I had to look within myself to understand more and more of who I am rather than go external. Jump forward a couple of years, like I found myself looking for ways of connecting with people that understood what I was going through, and found myself after a few years in a group that did past life regression and connected. There was about 4 or 5 of us. I'm actually part of a woman's book. She was translating all of the information and created a book through the process. And so as I went through that process, I discovered that I could work with people to connect them and support them in stripping off the stuff that I was stripping off with my past life regressions, and finding and understanding themselves deeper and deeper. And so I started working on people, started working energetically, and discovered this thing called the 3 powers. It was just something I came up with when I was working with people in the solar plexus, and discovered that a lot of people had a problem with connecting to their power. They were either power or powerless, and also that they had no connection to being empowered, which I see as the connection between yourself and your higher self, your intuition. So that's how I came up with the 3 powers, and now it's actually the foundation of my work. So let's go through, let's see if I can go through this. So this is just a photo of some of my family. So this is my daughter and I in Africa, and my family, my son, my daughter and her husband. And the bottom 2 pictures are representative of what I experienced as a child. So I was actually, now looking back, because I don't really remember much of my childhood, but looking back, I actually was quite a happy kid. I was someone that really was joyful and energetic and had lots of fun. And my brothers were 7 and 8 years older than me. So I don't even remember Martin with the brown hair. I don't even remember him actually living at our house. So I felt like, even though I had brothers, I felt like I was actually an only child growing up. So, hey, Helen and Tam, if you jump on to the link and register, you'll actually get to see the PowerPoint presentation that I'm presenting on Zoom, if you want to come in through that way as well. And so that was me before, I think, the energy of joy and happiness was actually squashed. I found myself, you know, my dad was on a kidney machine all my life. I don't remember him ever being healthy. And he was like 3 times a week for 6 hours. He used to have to hook himself up to a kidney machine and get his blood cleaned. And I was allocated to help him. So we had a thing down underneath the house. It's still there actually. And he would have all of his gadgets, all of his, you know, artificial kidney, and like it was a thing with fiberglass in it, I think. And it had tubes, and we had the, what do you call that stuff? It's been so long, because my dad died when I was 15. So it was a huge process for me to go through living with him. And actually my mum worked all the time, so I don't actually remember her being at home. And my dad was on the kidney machine, and so he was the only person I really knew, because mum kept me very isolated from society. However, I sort of knew that he was going to die. I used to lay next to him when he was on the machine and cry, "I don't want you to die." And neither of us understood why I was doing that, until when he actually got a kidney machine. He got a kidney for the first time. He was the longest in New South Wales on the machine, and then he got a kidney. And within a month, I think it might have even been less, it stopped working, and they had to take it out. So he had 2 major operations within a month, and they needed the bed, so they brought him home when they shouldn't have. We had to sterilize, actually the room that I'm in right now, we had to sterilize the room so that he could be in the house. And yeah, and then just one day I went to school and came back. Well, they came into the school, into the classroom, and for some reason I just knew there was nothing to indicate that he was going to lose the kidney. Sorry, he'd already lost the kidney, that he was going to pass away. But when the teacher came into the classroom, I started packing all my stuff, and she turned around and looked at me, and I said, "He's dead, isn't he?" So for some reason, I just knew things like that all my life, and I don't know exactly why. I do believe that if we connect with ourselves, we actually all have the ability to understand that process and to really understand our intuition. So anyway, jump forward, and after really having a very isolated life and being very shy, introverted, believing that everyone was right and I was wrong, I finally moved into a very, very hard life. When Dad died, I moved out of the house. I was 16 when I took off, and spent 10 years in a pretty hardcore experience in a relationship, and then had children and went, okay, something's got to shift here. And so I think the children saved my life. And that's when I really started exploring and understanding myself, and really getting to know spirit and intuition. And so through that process, I now can be on things like webinars. I can express myself and understand things in a whole different way. And now I believe that that's what my destiny is, to support women to do the same thing in any situation, to process their life internally so that their world externally is a beautiful process and flows really well. So hence the 3 powers. So I want to ask you where you think you sit in the 3 powers. Do you think that you find yourself in a place where you're constantly attacking or being aggressive? Where you find that you have to manipulate and control things? Or do you find yourself in a place of powerless, where you are, hey Helen, hey Anne, hey Roseanne, sorry I haven't said hello to any of you, where you're feeling that your world is being governed by other people and you don't have much control? Or do you find that you sit empowered? Because not many people do, not many people understand the dynamics of empowered. So I'm going to show you the process of this. So let's go through what each one, actually a description of each one. So powerless is, power and powerless are energies that actually need each other. So they actually play the game, and they give and they take, and they need each other to survive. If they don't have each other, then they're actually not even on the, they're not around, they're extinct, okay? So powerless is being a victim, diminished energy being pulled off you, helpless, shrinking back, you know, not feeling like you're in control of anything, being manipulated by something or someone. People that have got, that are sad and depressed and anxious are often people that are feeling powerless. They have a false persona often because they don't want to be attacked, they don't want to be discriminated against. So they have, sometimes the false persona can seem like that they're in a great place, but they're actually not. So power is a different place altogether. It can be very aggressive, lashing out. It can be a forceful behavior. Passive aggressive is also manipulation and power. Hey, all the people that are on Facebook watching, if you go into the link that I've put on the post to register for the Dose of Sunshine webinar, you'll see that there's a link there, and you can jump on and actually see the PowerPoints as well. So narcissistic and passive aggressive are very much power, playing the power game. Perfectionism can be part of playing the power game. And so power is something that's often attacking, but it also can be very slippery and slimy and snake-like. You know, it can be sarcastic, and it's got this way of persuading things without people knowing as well. So while we're on here, just have a think of anyone or yourself. Have you been in any of these situations? We've all been. This is the way the world works, right? Power and powerless. There's always this game of the two working together. Empowerment is a whole different ball game. So empowerment is self-generated. It doesn't actually need anything to get energy. So power and powerless play this game. Empowerment is self-generated. It comes from this beautiful source that's us, our higher intuition. It's very much, as I said, self-generated. Is very much in a beautiful place of not needing to control. It also doesn't have, it doesn't lash out as in aggressively. However, it does have a force to it. So the reason I'm using the lioness, I'm taking through a group of 15 women through what I call Awaken the Lioness. Brenda is one of those beautiful women on the call, on the online program. And I use the lioness because for years, even when I was up in Far North Queensland and working with people on a regular basis up there, I would use the lioness as an example of empowerment. Because the lioness, for example, she's laying out, enjoying the sun out on the in Africa somewhere. She's just enjoying the sun and she's having a lot of peace, and she's just enjoying her day, and she's got some cubs behind her, and they're all playing and mucking around, and they're biting her tail and mucking around and playing, and they're biting her tail, and they're mucking around and they're biting her tail, and she is totally fine with it until she's not. And the moment she's not, she actually will turn around and lash at them. Now, in that moment, she's actually saying, you've crossed my boundaries, watch out. She's giving them this force and showing them that this is who I am and you've crossed the boundary, right? Now, those kids, actually the cubs, actually know, they've got this total respect for their mother, and they actually know that they've crossed the boundary, and so they back off. Now, she doesn't spend the next week complaining to her friends that her kids are little brats. She doesn't take the PlayStation off them. She doesn't ground them. You know, she doesn't spend the next week or whatever being passive aggressive and not talking to them. She actually just goes, okay, that's my boundary, back off, and then she's back to being herself. So when you're in a place of being empowered, often you don't have to, you respond to life rather than react. And often you'll find that something will happen and you don't even feel like you need to give a response. You just observe life and you observe what's going on, and you know that actually, like, there's just this knowing that this is the way it is, and you don't necessarily have to give your opinion often as well, because you're quite happy internally, so you don't need justification or acknowledgement outside of yourself as well. So empowered is very graceful. It's got its own internal joy, so it doesn't need that energy from outside of itself to see who it is or get acknowledgement and recognition of who it is, right? That's not to say that as a human being, that's the way we are. We actually naturally need acknowledgement in some way, because we do play this game, and I'm going to go to the next slide. Here on Earth, being a human, we are at one stage or another going to be in this powerless trap or game, right? Because this is the way life is. This is the duality of being in a third dimensional reality. So there's often, I mean, we live in a place where the government's in control, like power, we're powerless. COVID's power, we're powerless. You know, the media is power, we're powerless. I don't know if anyone has been watching what's been going on over in America. I personally don't watch the media. I just spent the day yesterday with my daughter, who is got a little, I don't know where she gets it from, but she's got a little bit of a political stance to her compared to me. I have no idea what's going on in that area of life, but she's on the ball. And she was telling me about what's going on in America, and actually showed me some videos, and I had to clear my energy afterwards because it's pretty intense. So there's this power and powerless. Like, you can watch something like that and actually find yourself being hooked into without even realizing it. One of the videos showed this mask, this thing that it's called Anonymous or something like that, some group that's just come out. She knows all about it, but on the video that she didn't even show me, she was showing me TikTok. On the video, there was a mask, and I actually said to her, even that image is bad for your soul, because the mask is has got a energy that hooks into people. Even without seeing what was in the video, I was having to explain to her, be careful of what you're actually watching, because there's all this physical stuff that we see, and then there's all this energy stuff that we're not even aware of if we're not that way inclined, if we don't have some sort of self-awareness of our energy field. And so some images can be quite damaging to our soul and very offensive to our energy field. So be aware that you can be in a place of power and powerless without even being aware of it. Whereas empowered doesn't play that game. When you're in a place of personal growth and being empowered, doesn't mean you're not going to sink into power and powerless and get caught in that game. But when you have been really spending a lot of time on your own self-development and stripping a lot of your old story and the connections that you have, the thoughts in your brain. I'm actually in Sydney at the moment. I haven't been here since the start of COVID. I've been in Central Coast, and the energy of being in the same house as I was before, watching myself have the alarm go off and not want to get out of bed and start making excuses of why I don't have to, because it's cold, blah, 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 blah. And watching that, it's something to do with not just me and my thoughts, but the energy in that of old story that's in this house. So be aware that things can be touching you in a way that you're not even aware of. And so you can sink into the place of power and powerless. If you are on a journey of personal growth and self-awareness, then you can be, oh, okay, it's happening. And you can pull back and move out of that process. Catch your thoughts, and you can actually do something about it, so that you're, because you're aware of it and you're doing something, you're, wait a minute, I just caught that. I'm going to move out of that and do something and change that thought and take the action to get out of bed and get in the shower. So empowerment has its own journey. It's not caught in the game and the roles of power and powerless. Sometimes it can find itself in that place, but it listens to its intuition and acts from there. It knows when to pause. When you're in a place of empowered and something's going on for you, you're more aware of the energy that's not in a place of energetically connected. And so you can stop, breathe, pause, and reconnect, and then come from a decision or a choice or an action from here instead of from power or powerless. When you're playing this game of power and powerless, you're coming from a decision that's in here and physically your personality instead of your higher connection and your source energy. So thank you for watching. I'm not sure what the time is because I'm on 2 devices and I can't see my clock. If you're interested in keeping in contact, you can check out that QR code and click on it, because it takes you to my business page, which is Spiritual Warrior, Elizabeth Eleanor, the Spiritual Warrior, and see what I've got to offer on there. Hopefully I've got some value that might help you connect on that page as well. If you found that something resonated to you here, if you found that you started to understand that you're trapped in a cycle of power and powerless, and you're not quite sure how to get out of that process, then I wanted to offer 30-minute conscious calls. I've only got a few that I do a month, but I'm offering some free calls for those that want to just talk through, because you're not even sure where you're sitting with those things. You might have, you know, your outside world might be overpowering you and you're not 100% sure how to get out of that. Or you might think that you're empowered and you just wanted to clarify that. So if you're someone that really would like to understand more of the process, then when this is finished, I'm going to jump on to this live and put it in the comments, and I'll add the link so that if you're interested in having a 30-minute chat for free, jump on and grab yourself a booking, and we will chat further. So thank you so much to everyone that's on the webinar as well, and that you're listening and that you came on for my first one. I'm very excited. Because you're registered, you'll also get the recording of this. So you can go back and have a look and see if anything resonated to you. Take care, everyone, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you, everyone on the webinar. I just stopped the recording on live, on the Facebook Live. I was so nervous. I don't know if anyone realized, but I was very nervous. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to stop the recording.